Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families. A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. And what better way to do that than to bring you three fabulous memoirists, which is a little bit of a mouthful to say, memoirists. And we have some very delightful questions for Bruce Lowery, Jess Mudditt and David Hume, who will introduce to you in a very short while. So this is our writer's room. I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, sci-fi, memoir and picture book writer, reader of many genres, your founder and one of your co-hosts this evening, coming to you from a delightfully sunny, well, evening now, Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
And I'm Laurie Bell, science fiction and fantasy author, Friday fictioneer, reader, and co-host for your podcast today. And I'm also coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
Excellent. And
Yes.
Let's just work our way across Melbourne. So, David Hume, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Whose country are you on tonight, David?
I live in Springvale, which is part of the Bunurong country.
Oh, beautiful country out that way.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
indeed. Fantastic. And pleasant and sunny day in Victoria. We can say that every now and again, can't we? Or several times a day.
25 degrees today.
Yes,
Was
it was very
indeed.
the hint of things to come, which is absolutely lovely. We've got a snowball tree out the back, and the first snowballs are just starting to come, which I really love. All right. Jessica Muditt, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. I am in Bankstown, about 20 kilometres from the centre of Sydney, which is Darug country.
Beautiful.
Lovely.
And yeah, lovely up that way. Yes,
Yeah.
I have done a little bit of trekking around there. Yeah, that is also good.
Hope you haven't had as much rain this week, have you?
We had a lot yesterday, huge amount.
dear.
Today, not so bad, but yesterday
That's good.
was a lot. Yeah.
I swear sometimes I think you've been swapping your weather with ours at the moment, Sydney and Melbourne.
Yeah, it's been all over the shop, but it is spring.
It is.
Comes with the territory.
Tumultuous, yes, indeed.
Yes. Yeah.
And Bruce Lowery, welcome to the Australian Book Lovers podcast.
Well, thank you. Nice to be here. I come from the Dandenong Ranges, which is the custodians, the Wurundjeri people.
Beautiful. All right. Now, Jess, I think you admitted to us beforehand that you were in fact Melbourne born and bred, so we could almost say we had a clean sweep.
Yeah. Yeah, my mum's in Blackburn.
There you go.
Lovely.
Yeah, very good. We are here also, and I'll just say that you have the delightful Nicole Webb as your publicist, and we'll just give a shout out to Nicole because I know she does a great job at supporting her authors and was able to arrange all of these fabulous people who have quite different stories. So I'm going to start the panel, and we've got a few questions, but you never know what might begin, and I'll do your blurbs in a minute. But for those that are listening, the definition is that while an autobiography is an account of a person's entire life, a memoir usually is only about one part of a person's life. It's a non-fiction narrative, and the author shares their memories from a specific time period or reflects upon a string of themed occurrences throughout their life. So there you go. That was from Grammarly and Britannica, which is interesting. We've got some lovely quotes to share from some other memoirists during the time, but I thought that was quite good.
Yes.
So will we go alphabetical? What do you think, Laurie?
Yes, let's
Yes, at
let's
the end.
kick off
Sorry.
that way, and then we'll reverse, or we'll end up higgledy-piggledy, which I'm sure will happen, but we'll shout out who we're speaking to each time, I think.
That works well.
Yep.
Okay, so Bruce,
Yes.
let me scroll on down to you. Get your mind ready for some questions, but I
Okay.
am going to read through your bio first of all, and just let everybody know that Bruce emigrated from the UK to Melbourne. There's not that much accent in the voice, Bruce, I'd have to say.
I came out when I was 4 years of age, Veronica.
Excellent, excellent. You are so young. I don't wouldn't know. There you go. Fantastic. So Bruce came out in 1955 with his parents, Bob and Effie, and together with his elder brother, Bob Jr. After a brief stay with relatives in Clayton, the family moved to Victoria's beautiful Dandenong Ranges, where he has had the good fortune to live ever since, as he mentioned. Following the late 1960s adventures described in his book, Bruce accepted a position as office boy with the Australian arm of the German-Belgian imaging company AGFA. I remember AGFA, where he eventually rose to the position of national sales manager. This allowed him to eagerly participate in many varied Australian industries that included motion pictures, music recording, medical industrial X-ray imaging, and printing over a 37-year period. Away from work, Bruce is a live member of the Olinda Ferny Creek Football Netball Club, having enjoyed many positions that include player, coach, president, secretary, and chair of the sports management group. He is the proud father of two. Let me say that again. I had my comma in the wrong spot. He is the proud father of two much-loved daughters and grandfather to three wonderful granddaughters. He remains happily married to his wife of over 50 years, Sue. There you are. So should we have Sue here to back up the facts and tell us how many stretches of the truth there
are? She's busy cooking a curry for me.
Oh, excellent.
Very
excellent.
nice.
Very good. All right, so Bruce, England in the wee small years, but now you've had so many years in Australia. Obviously, there's a lot of adventure in Australia. I was looking at your website and tracking your journey from Victoria across to South Australia into the fabulous WA and up that coast there. So can I ask you perhaps why that particular slice of your life? Why share that one?
Well, that period of my life was very important. 18 years of age, a series of unfortunate and episodes occurred which forced me to have a separation from my then girlfriend. And typical of an 18-year-old back in the day, a knee-jerk reaction was to just drop everything and take off in the general direction of Perth. And that's the way we started. The astonishing fact is that not only did I make a decision on the spur of the moment, but I asked a mate, and he took all of 3 seconds to say, "Yeah, I'll come with you." There's two of us heading in that direction.
Sounds like a good mate then.
He was indeed, and still is. Yes.
Yeah, very good. All right, Laurie, perhaps you'll give us the blurb on Catching the Wind.
Yes, indeed. Sorry, let me get that one in front of me. So it does sound absolutely fantastic, with just some interesting things that have occurred by the sound of it. So propelled by the collapse of an intense love affair, 18-year-old Bruce Lowery sets off from his home in the Dandenong Ranges in Victoria for a year-long adventure in 1968. Unexpectedly armed with a letter of permission from his father, Bruce and various mates hitchhiked to the remotest corners of outback Australia. They master the rudiments of fettling and sheep mustering and find lodgings in some of the most isolated places on the planet. It's hard yakka under the hot Australian sun, and encounters with wildlife are part and parcel of the experience. It's an era when social mores are changing and young men and women have more sexual freedoms than ever before, yet Bruce still chafes against the conservative views he comes up against. His long blonde hair is considered an impediment to employment, but he'll be damned if he's going to cut it. As Bruce struggles to come to terms with ambiguity surrounding his relationship back in Victoria, he encounters a host of colourful characters who amuse, alarm, and inspire him. From the middle-aged nurse with an unhealthy interest in young men's testicles to the drunken railway ganger and the law-evading jackaroo, join Bruce as he travels vast distances across this wide brown land. So that sounds like a lot of fun.
Indeed it was. Indeed it was. And the story had rattled around in my head for almost 50 years. Well, in fact, over 50 years. And it was great to have the opportunity finally to put pen to paper and get the book out. So it's been a real joy.
That's wonderful. I'm looking forward to finding out how you all went about that process of breaking down parts of your own lives to tell these stories. So, Veronica, did you want to jump into our next fabulous bio?
I'm going to introduce the listeners to David. So David's life began in a world devoid of light, a premature birth leaving him blind. The irony of life-saving oxygen robbing him of sight set the stage for a remarkable journey of resilience and perseverance. At 5, David was sent to a special school for blind children, far from the warmth of home. Here he faced the harsh realities of life, including bullying from older children, which only fueled his determination to be self-reliant and resilient. As a young man, David confronted a world where opportunities for the visually impaired were scarce and societal expectations low. But in this darkness, he discovered the power of second sight, the ability to use foresight, insight, and hindsight to shape dreams and visions. I really love that, David. Guided by forward-thinking mentors, David envisioned a life of independence, realised through the companionship of 7 guide dogs over the years, providing him with mobility and a sense of freedom. David's professional journey was marked by challenges and triumphs. He found financial stability in local government and radio jobs and gained confidence through debating and public speaking. His personal life flourished when he met and married Ruth, a former nun, with whom he had 3 sons. Despite societal prejudices, David thrived, using sophisticated telephone techniques to secure high-level recruitment assignments across continents, often influencing lives without ever meeting the individuals in person. His passion for sailing led him to dream of being the first blind person in the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. Along with psychiatrist Mike Epstein, David purchased a FAR 37 race cruiser named Out of Sight, Out of Mind. Nice one, David. Their participation in the race, particularly its 50th anniversary marked by violent storms, highlighted David's courage and determination. However, a disastrous engine failure forced them to retire, a decision made in the face of overwhelming odds. Personal tragedy struck with the loss of his wife Ruth to cancer. The strength David displayed in raising their 3 sons alone and later finding love again with Liz, creating a blended family, is a testament to his resilience and capacity for love. Throughout his career, David's diverse background in media, manufacturing and retail, coupled with his problem-solving skills, deeply impacted many as a recruitment professional. His journey is not just a story of overcoming physical blindness, but also a lesson in seeing beyond societal limitations and personal hardships. Wow, David, that is a life and a half.
Yes, you referred to it as a memoir. It wasn't, as you've seen. It's from cradle to now.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, but I would like you to add another 20 or 30 years on, David, and you can then say absolutely that it's a biography.
Let's see whether that's a possibility. I'd like to get a letter from Prince William, because in 20 years' time.
Yes, yeah. Wouldn't that be lovely? Yes.
Well, I've got my OBE, you see. I'm over bloody 80 now. So
well done. Yeah. David, tell me why put your story on paper? Why was that important to you?
Very simple. I initially started all of this on the public speaking circuit.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be blunt. 2 things happened. I got bored with telling my story night after night after night. I then was rapidly informed by many of the people who attended my public speaking that they felt that I would be able to inspire other blind people or other people with disabilities to rise above their situations, and also to allow sighted people to have a better understanding, particularly of blind people, because whether we like it or not, sight for you guys is probably the most important of your senses. It's not mine.
Yes. And so a book was a way to put the story there and then cover other things in your public speaking?
Yes, that's true. The truth of the matter is that I am a writer of people analysis reports and business reports, so I'm not a natural novelist. So I recruited my brother-in-law, good friend Pete Murray, who helped put the book together. And I'll be frank, I gave him the facts, I gave him the style of the book, but Peter was the one who put it together in terms of using his curiosity, intellect, and very talented writing.
Excellent. So you're obviously happy with the results. Sorry, Laurie, I jumped in then.
No, all good, all good. I'm really interested to hear more, particularly about actually I would find it terrifying to get on a boat in the middle of the Hobart. That is not an easy race for anyone. I don't care whether you can see or not see. That is terrifying.
Well, anybody who wants to see the race, there are pictures of the whole thing in 1984 on my website, davidhume.com.au, www. Of course. And you know, it was a marvelous experience. The 84 boat race was incredible because there were 60 knots of winds above the deck, which is a huge speed, and 12-meter waves. And it was like going up and down an express lift, every second wave with a crash at the end. And the good thing about being a blind person, because you can't see the horizon, I never got seasick, but most of my crew did.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating.
Take your advantages for sure.
Absolutely.
Laurie, would you like to tell the listeners about the books? I think we're jumping into them quickly.
People said to me that, you know, because you're blind, you wouldn't have worried out there. You'll be able to see. I said, you know what? Maybe I may be blind, but I've got a very vivid imagination.
Oh my goodness, thanks, David. Let me read about your book. So, sent blind soon after birth, David Hume stubbornly refused to live the limited life well-meaning elders and social norms expected. I do not wake in the morning and regret I'm blind. No, I wake and look to another win in a busy life. To date, that encompasses years in a blind institute, 2 marriages, grieving for 2 outstanding wives, founding recruiting firms, devising marketing techniques, facing business collapse, sailing ocean races, and through much of it, being the lead singer in popular bands. Oh, I need to ask more about that. If you enjoy a short biography that inspires, saddens, cheers, and sticks in your memory, then don't put aside Blind Without Barriers. David's story, encompassing self-discipline, resilience, responsibility, forgiveness, and family values, is a compelling narrative that offers hope and inspiration. It is a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity and a reminder that vision is not just seen with the eyes, but with the heart and mind. This tale is not just about a man who couldn't see, but about a man who taught the world a different way to look at life. Goodness. Oh, please tell me one of your favorite songs. What's one of your favorite songs to sing, David?
My Way, probably.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Regrets. I've had a few, but not again. Too much meant to me. Sorry about that. I buggered that up.
Perhaps we'll have to do a chorus at the end. Thanks, David. I always think that I have a good face for radio. So I love someone who's got a beautiful voice that comes across so lovely and resonant. And now on to someone whose voice will resonate at a slightly different pitch. Jessica, let's get on to you. So Jess, travel was also in your memoir. So let's talk. Jessica Muditt is the author of 2 memoirs and the founder of Hembury Books. Her first book is called Our Home in Myanmar, and it was published in 2021. Her second book is Once Around the Sun, From Cambodia to Tibet. And this is, in fact, a 2-part series with Kathmandu to the Khyber Pass coming in 2025. Hope that's coming along, Jess. I'm sure you're going to tell us in a minute how that's going. So Jessica is a former journalist whose articles have been published by Forbes, the BBC, GQ, and Marie Claire, among others. She spent 10 years working as a journalist in London, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. I don't know whether I'm saying that correctly, but Jess will correct us. Before returning home in 2016. She lives in Sydney with her 2 daughters and 2 cats. Well, you're already on our side. We love cats on this podcast. Sometimes Laurie's cats will just have a little trounce across the screen. Jessica, as the founder of Henbury Books, provides non-fiction authors with coaching, editing, and self-publishing services. And Henbury Books, as I mentioned earlier, also has a podcast about bringing non-fiction books to life. So, Jessica, why non-fiction and then your own memoirs? Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Well, I think being a journalist, I've always loved non-fiction, and I obsessively read non-fiction. I probably have 2 books behind me that are fiction, and they're George Orwell's, who was a journalist. So I just love it because I love contributing knowledge to the world, which is why Henbury Books publishes non-fiction books. And then the practical reason is that I have no expertise in fiction. The devices are different. You know, what makes a good fiction book can be different. They both need to be page turners, like Bruce's books are, which Henbury Books published. But that's really my passion, is nonfiction. And then our home in Myanmar, I wrote because it was such a special time that I was there. It was a historic time. So Aung San Suu Kyi had been released from house arrest. The elections were coming up that ended 50 years of a military dictatorship. So I was happily writing it, you know, like a lighthearted kind of expat account of living in what had been a hermit kingdom. And then just before I self-published it, there was the coup of 2021. And then I got to the end and realized, well, this is a history book because the country has completely closed again and returned to the dark days. So that made it really bittersweet. And then I was going to write a book about the years that I lived in Bangladesh, but then COVID happened and international travel went out the window. And I suddenly realized that year of backpacking where I was so free, my freedom of movement was completely uncurtailed. Meanwhile, I was in Sydney and I couldn't go further than 5 kilometers for about 3 months. So I turned to backpacking and that really free time. And I had 2 little kids at the time, being a single parent. You know, there was a big difference between life then and the life that I was writing about. So it was really enjoyable. And then I realized, like Bruce did, oh, I've got a lot of material. This single book that I contemplated is a 2-part series. So I'm enjoying writing Kathmandu to the Khyber Pass as well. And then I'll write about Bangladesh. And then I'm going to write a book about how to write books because I will have worked with clients for many years. So I want to share like how to overcome common obstacles and things like that for a non-fiction book.
So you've got the next 5 years planned out, would we say?
Yeah.
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 That's fantastic.
Yeah, I just love writing books. I'll always write books.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm just thinking about the 2 piles of books I've got here. And I'll say the non-fiction ones are 2 books higher than the fiction ones at present. So that's not too bad. So yes, I do enjoy a lot of non-fiction as well. Laurie, your shot.
Yes. Okay. Let me tell you a bit about Once Around the Sun. So, while nursing a broken heart at the age of 25, Jessica Mudditt sets off from Melbourne for a year of solo backpacking through Asia. She has spent 6 years at university, yet still has no idea what she is going to do with the rest of her life. She just knows that she is profoundly curious about other cultures and hungry for new experiences. Her willingness to try almost anything quickly lands her in a scrape in Cambodia. With the nation's tragic history continuing to play out in the form of widespread poverty, Jessica looks for ways to make a positive impact. She crosses overland into a remote part of Laos, where friendships form fast and jungle adventures await. Vietnam is an intoxicating sensory overload, and the hedonism of the backpacking scene reaches new heights. Jessica is awed by the scale and beauty of China, but she has underestimated the language barrier and begins her time there feeling lost and lonely. In circumstances that take her by surprise, Jessica finds herself hiking to Mount Everest Base Camp in Tibet. Well, that is absolutely fascinating. What a interesting meandering path, I guess, in where you went. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I really fell in love with Asia over that year. And I returned to live there for 7 years. I did 3 years in Bangladesh and 4 years in Myanmar because it just really got under my skin. I feel very happy there.
Would you go back again, Jessica?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to take my daughters. My daughters are half Bangladeshi, so I hope to go back as soon as they're a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'll always love traveling in that part of the world.
Come back.
Beautiful. David, your favourite place to visit? What's your favourite country?
Yeah, that me.
Oh, look, I can't go by Australia.
Yep.
And I've been to Asia. I've been to Europe and the UK. I've been to my home country. My father came out here when he was 9. That's Scotland, and also the US. The US, I've got mixed views on. I won't repeat them here.
Okay. We'll leave that for a political broadcast or something a little bit later.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So let's get back to Bruce, your favourite, or perhaps should I say your favourite state, given your travels across Australia?
Well, I've always been a Melbourne boy ever since we emigrated, and I've travelled the world with business, and I love all parts of Australia, and the travel when I was 18 to all those various states and the remote parts of those states was a real eye opener and a real delight. It was University of Life stuff, really, for me, and at age 18 to travel to those various parts of Australia. And I don't know whether everybody else is the same, but when I travel, I have a really heightened sense of awareness. And so the recall on all those things that happened all those years ago wasn't so difficult. And I also had the benefit of keeping a diary at the time and keeping lots and lots of letters that from my parents, from mates, which I kept all of those years, and I was able to refer to that. So that helped me a great deal. And Australia is a wonderful place. And Melbourne is certainly one of my favourite cities, and that's why I continue to live close by.
Yeah, I will have to agree with you there. You're not going to get any arguments. And just thinking about what you mentioned there about your notes and those kind of things, having, written a memoir, my memoir myself based on journalings that I wrote to my young daughter. It's incredibly, I think, brave of people who put their own story, be it memoir, biography, autobiography, out into the world to share the goods and the bads and the vulnerabilities and to let people into your lives. So Jess, how did it feel to put your story on the page and sort of, share some of those moments?
Yeah, it's a toss up a lot along the way of what to include and what to leave out.
Mm-hmm.
And my policy is to start by putting everything in for yourself and to write it for yourself. But if there's like a scene that kind of is keeping you awake at night, gives you a bit of anxiety, take it out. However, I also think you should push yourself because the value of memoir is that it's true and it's vulnerable and it's raw. So my book begins with a shocking case of I can't even say it out loud, but I got really sick. I got really sick.
Okay.
Oh no.
So sick. And I put it in and and I've actually had so many people, including my mum, say that happened to me. It was like being a baby again, like complete loss of control. So I think it's a balance, but I think also you have to think about the only person I criticize in my books is myself. I try not to criticize other people or to drag other people into my books because I don't think that's, I don't think that's that's not the purpose anyway. It's a book about my life. So I will, edit those kinds of things out, but it's difficult. And I don't know whether you ever get it right. Like I'm a completely different person today than the person I was when I was 25. Like in my Myanmar book, I drank, I smoked, I partied all the time. And, you know, as a backpacker, you know, I was just like doing whatever I wanted. And I read stuff that I did and I cannot believe I did it. And I want to censor myself, but otherwise it won't be true.
There is that, and you know, one of the things that I teach in leadership is that the more personal, the more universal. If people can relate to something personally, as you've just said, people appreciate the story that you shared at the beginning. It makes the story relatable.
Yeah. It's a brave thing to write a memoir, because if someone doesn't like it, they don't really like you, do they?
It's a little tricky, yes.
A little tricky,
sure.
but we just have to be ourselves. And I love reading other people's memoirs. So this is my contribution.
Putting it out there in the canon. Very good. David, can I ask you, you covered so much in the biography. How did you know, you mentioned sort of earlier that you asked your brother-in-law to find the right voice to tell your stories. How long did it take you to share those memories and the stories and the events that eventually made their way into the book?
Well, our situation was quite a relaxed one because Pete was not only my brother-in-law, but one of my very closest friends. And so we were able to talk totally honestly and bluntly. And I set Peter up in terms of my style as a person, because I had four magnificent mentors. My lovely 101-year-old plus aunt, Alison, who taught me about women. And believe me, that's a hell of a subject.
Well, we would agree. I think
And then, of course, I had Ray Morris, my first boss, who got me into Apex, and I was into rostrum and Toastmasters for public speaking and debating, which helped me enormously, of course. And finally was Ron Camplin, my boss, who, despite I was told that I could never get into radio because I was blind, said, "That's ridiculous. We can set up the station in such a way as it'll be user friendly to you, and you can handle it." And I got bored with being a radio announcer, and he said, "Okay, you love football, go and sell it." So I became sales manager of the two radio stations he owned. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love that his comment there was so spot on. How ridiculous that it would be that you cannot speak on radio. You have a voice.
It's been, yes. Unfortunately, I've got a relatively well modulated voice. Yeah, it's been trained over time.
I'm a great listener of audiobooks, David. Have you ever considered doing audiobooks?
I have, but haven't got around to it. But my book is available in audio through Amazon, and of course, and Kindle and those sorts of people.
Would you read for somebody else's? Would you record somebody else's book for them?
I'd love to.
Ah, there you go. All right.
Definitely have a voice that is captivating. So it would be marvelous as an audiobook. Narrator, yes.
Yeah.
Laurie, question
yes,
for you. Go for it.
I was actually going to ask Bruce. So why did you choose to write this story, write this memoir of this moment in your life? It is an extraordinary moment, and backpacking in general is so very fascinating, particularly for those that don't do backpacking, which is like myself. So why did you decide to tell that part of your life?
Backpacking wasn't a term back in those days. We were hitchhiking. So, but I've been dining out on the stories and the anecdotes from that period of my life for a long time. And a few people have said to me, "You really need to get this down in writing." And eventually, and once I got into my 70s, I couldn't wait to actually start. I found I had the time. Coming into the COVID time, there was a lot of lockdowns, as we remember, of course, and that provided me with the opportunity to sit down and start writing it. And it wasn't a hard job for me. I just enjoyed the whole process from the word go, and just enjoyed the whole process of writing it, publishing it, and promoting it. It's been a terrific time in my life. And as Jess alluded, there were so many memories from that period of 1968 and on into 1969, where I travelled not only to West Australia and South Australia, but then eventually in '69 went up to Queensland. And there were so many memories that I, like Jess, have got another book coming out. It's going to be called Out of Time, and we'll be publishing that before Christmas. So that'll cover the time that I spent up in the rough time up in the Queensland ship. It's a lot of fun. And quite an astonishing time. And the '60s was an astonishing time. For those that lived through it, there's so many fond memories, and there's so many. It was a great time of change, and one that I enjoyed greatly. So I have a very fond memories of that period in my life, and I had to share it with people.
That's fantastic. And I do want to ask both Jessica, you might not have experienced this quite as much because of being a bit younger, so there's a bit more technology involved. But Bruce, you would have been completely out of touch with family, with friends, with the occasional phone booth that you might have been able to find. How was that?
Well, phone calls from interstate to Melbourne back in 1968 were so cost prohibitive that I never once rang home. In fact, my family in Sassafras didn't have the phone on. Didn't even have a landline in those days. So if I had rung, I would have to rung a neighbour, and they would have had to have gone
running next door. Yeah, I remember that.
Not once. So the communication were letters, and that's the blessing for when I was writing the book. We were writing letters to each other, certainly weekly, if not every 2 or 3 days, to my parents and my friends. It became letter writing was such a thing that everybody enjoyed doing in those days. And if you were lonely and you missed your family and your friends, that was it. You'd write letters and really loved receiving them coming back to you. So it was a wonderful time, and thank God for letters. And we rely on communication is so much easier now with texts and emails and things like that. But there's a beauty in a handwritten letter, and I've had such pleasure in going back over those letters to write these 2 books.
And some of them are in your book.
Yes, there are some excerpts in the books too. That's correct. Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
It reminds me of in the early years, Bruce and we are of an age, and telegrams were the way to go. But of course, they cost per word. So arrive at a place and that's what you sent home. Arrived. To go, okay, that's it. You couldn't afford to send too many words because it was more expensive. But yeah. That was the olden days. Sorry, Laurie, go ahead.
No, that's what I was going to say. So, Bruce, you had letters that you were able to refer back to when you were putting your words together. David, what did you use to step through the telling of your entire life?
Okay, well, firstly, I have a first-class memory. Secondly, I was able to refer to my mother and my siblings. But most important of all, I've spent 30 years in the recruitment business, the executive recruitment business, and my whole life in that area was based on incidents and activities which I was able to refer back to because I kept profound notes on my speech simulated computer. Thank God we invented them rather than braille writers and typewriters, because my speech simulated computer has been opening up to a totally different world.
And Jessica, what about yourself when you were traveling, middle of nowhere? I'm sure.
I mean, I called home. I remember, like, if it was my birthday, because international calls were really expensive as well. And it was before social media, thankfully. So I used to go to internet cafes every few days and send emails home. And my beautiful dad saved all the emails that we exchanged for that entire year. And when I got home, he handed me a USB stick and said, "These are all the emails." And I was like, "Yeah, Dad, whatever." And like 4 or 5 years later, I opened it up, put it into Word, and there was 85,000 words, which is the length of the book.
Yeah.
So, because I had kept a diary meticulously, every day was recorded, but I had a horrible flatmate in London who tossed them out, which was heartbreaking. But I also had letters to my grandma because I used to handwrite letters to her. So, and then you go back through photos and things as well, and then do a lot of desk research. And what I do often, like this morning, I was in Varanasi in India. So I go onto YouTube and I do like a street walking tour of Varanasi. And, you know, for those small details and things, and that really takes me back to all the sights and sounds and that kind of thing.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's like a process of reconstruction, right?
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And it reminds me, sorry, Laurie, I was just going to say, I read Lee Kaufman, who's a memoirist as well. She had something on social media today that said memoir is a subgenre of creative nonfiction. The creative part means memoirists can take some liberties with factual truths, but only minor ones, but in order to render the emotional truth of their stories more palpable. But the work needs to be emotionally honest. So that's where the question for me was, where is the balance between the stories more important than the facts? And it really, I think that often in memoirs and biographies, we're trying to share the lessons that we learn as humans or as where we are in life or from our experiences to share those. It's not just here's my life. This is what I've learned in life. So David, for you, what do you think are the messages? I mean, a little bit of what we read in your blurb is there, but what do you think are the messages that are contained in your biography that you share with the world?
I think that if you have ambition, if you have motivation, and you look for opportunities and you gain involvement with mentors, nothing is impossible. The sky is the limit. You'll be presented with opportunities which at times you'll be afraid to take. But if you believe in them, if you think it's going to help you, then do it.
It's good advice.
Yeah, that's very good advice.
Yeah. Bruce, what about yourself? What do you think's some of the threads or the messages that we can learn from reading your story?
Well, it was, as I said before, University of Life stuff for me. And I'm pleased to say that not only baby boomers who have read my book, I've got feedback from some youngsters who were a similar age to me when I was doing this travelling. And they've gained a fair bit about it. They now understand the past, and life wasn't easy back then, particularly if you were hitchhiking around Australia. There was a lot of difficult people that I encountered, but we carried on because we always had a good sense of humour, and I tried to bring that out of the book too. In fact, both books. There was a wonderful sense of mateship, and we got by through those difficult times with the sense of humour that we had. And as I say, I've tried to capture that in the book, and I think I've succeeded based on the feedback I'm getting from the people who are reading it.
Fantastic. And yeah, the good old days, not always quite so good, were they, in the olden days?
Yeah. Another thing that is in my book was I and most of my friends had a great love for music. Music was going through an amazing time in the late 60s. And I make mention of a lot of the music and the love of music. And there were times and places that I was in that I couldn't hear any music because the radio just wouldn't pick up anything. We were so far away from civilization. So we were constantly talking about music wherever we were, and that's all recorded in the book. And the interesting thing is that my granddaughter, who's going out with a very nice young man, he was one of those that did read my book. He's 18, 19 years of age. And as he was reading through the book, he actually downloaded every song that was mentioned in the book.
Oh, wow.
So he's got a book playlist. Fantastic.
Yeah, and so that was an interesting exercise in its own right too.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
That's fantastic.
So then you definitely know that, yes, he has read the book. What about you, Jess?
Yes,
what do you think people learn or take as messages from your stories?
So mine's a coming of age as well. And I was really lost, when you're at a crossroads and you don't know what you're going to do with your life. And I had very low self-awareness. Like I was walking around behaving like a journalist, asking loads of people questions, you know, what's your life like? But I didn't have the confidence to believe that I could be a writer, that I could earn money from writing. And it wasn't until you kind of test yourself, and someone said to me, like, are you a journalist? Like, why are you asking so many questions? And I thought, maybe I could be a journalist. And then I landed in the UK, in Manchester, and set about trying to become a journalist, which ended up being a challenge of itself. But I think it's about kind of having confidence that you can do something with your life, that you don't have to do what's expected of you, that you can finish your degree and set off and have a completely different kind of life. And that, you know, travel broadens the mind, and that, you know, we're very privileged in Australia, and the things that I saw, you know, forever change you and give you perspective about like what a problem is, you know.
Yep.
But you do forget, like, I mean, I was looking at, because Varanasi was the first place in India I went to. And so this morning I was looking at images, you know, of people with leprosy and people begging. And because I'd written, you know, people of all ages are begging, and the dogs have, you know, mange. And I saw a puppy eating a rat, you know, stuff like that I'd never seen before. And I, you know, you forget again, you become desensitized again. Because when I was looking at these pictures, I was like, wow, I remember how I felt taking that in, you know, for the first time, which is why we should just keep traveling, right?
Yep.
If only I win Lotto, Jess, that would be fabulous. I'd be off like a shot.
Absolutely.
Plenty of places I'd love to see. All right, Laurie, your turn.
Yes, I was actually, you mentioned before, Jessica, about censoring and self-censoring when you're writing your own story. And I was just wondering, was there a part for each of you, so we'll start with you, Jess. Was there a part that you thought, I cannot put something in? It's just something that is so whatever, so much, I guess, and that you actually were either protecting yourself or just not wanting that to come out. Like, you don't have to say what it is, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, with Myanmar, I was smoking cigarettes and I was chain smoking through the book, because you have to commit to the device of smoking. You either smoke or you don't smoke. And I had one guy write to me, and he'd circled every time in the ebook where I was smoking and sent me his notes. And he was like, disgusting.
Oh.
I thought, do you know what? For the second book, I'm not going to smoke in the book, because I've forgotten what it's like to be a smoker. It was a filthy habit. I want to encourage people to travel, not to smoke. So I took it out. I just took it out. And there are pieces of me that I don't give away. And I always remember Paul Thoreau, you know, of the Great Railway Bazaar. At the end of the book, he says, while I was writing this book, I was getting divorced from my wife. I don't mention to it at all. It's like in an updated version. He says, I was thinking about it all the time, but I couldn't give that part of myself to the reader. It was too raw. And so that kind of gave me permission that there's parts of myself that I keep private, and then I share very freely with everything else. You know what I mean? So some things just need to be off limit, but I'm very open, that said.
David, what about yourself?
I suppose if you want to look at it boldly, I believe in holding nothing back. In my book, you'll see the rise and fall of me. I've had more wins than losses, and that's the most important thing to me. But I've not been ashamed to disclose my when I've been hit on the chin by events or by circumstances. And I believe in giving the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
That's excellent. Thanks, David. Bruce?
Yeah, I decided very early on there was no holds barred. It was a very exciting time. Some very unusual things happened to me. When we got down to the final publishing of the book, and Jess was helping me through that process, she said, "Do you really want to leave that part in?" And I can tell you everything that I wrote in the book is still in the book. So no holds barred in my book. No, none whatsoever. And some of it has been a bit embarrassing, but if most of it has been with a good sense of humour, so I think I've survived that. I haven't had anybody come to me and say how offensive any part of it was, but did race.
Including your wife, Bruce. Didn't you say you were in trouble with Sue or things?
Well, I expected to be in trouble. She waited quite some time until the book was published before she read it, but she was very kind and very understanding. Yes.
She's a good person.
I had one more if I can jump in very quickly,
go.
Veronica. So with memoirs and biographies and autobiographies, memory is so important. How important do you, because you've had to go back through your memories and relive these moments, and the letters would be very interesting. Do you ever find that there's something that you recall that is not quite what occurred, but it's how you remember the situation, whether it's through emotion or an experience that gave you a memory of something that you just didn't write down or anything? Like, how important is memory to writing your memoir?
For me,
Yeah, Bruce.
it is very important. But it is very interesting because there are people who are in the book who have now read the book, and in some circumstances they remembered the incidents with slight variances to the way I remembered it. But by and large, our memories coincided, but there were slight variances here and there. So yes, it's true. Our memories do play tricks on us, and there are certain things that we block out of our memories if they're too traumatic. So those diaries and those letters become really important because they keep you on the right narrative. And look, I think anybody that writes an entertaining memoir is likely to embellish here and there. Certainly was guilty of that, but they were true to the spirit of the times, and the events really happened. I just described them with a bit of embellishment to make them a bit more humorous or a bit more interesting. So yeah, that's certainly true, and I hope that the book's more entertaining as a result of that.
And David, you said you had copious notes that you kept. Did you rely on a lot of those notes when you were putting together your memoir?
Yes, I did. Can I also say to you that there are a few things I got wrong. Ego can sometimes influence what you write, and I was writing about my ability as a good ballroom dancer, but I danced with my stepdaughter Gabrielle, who was a professional jazz ballet dancer.
Oh, wow.
And I said to her, I said in my book that in dancing with Gabriel, who was outstanding, I felt awkward like a cart horse. And she said, no, you weren't awkward like a cart horse. You were just a blind bloke.
Absolutely. Oh no, that's it exactly. It's that memory and what memory does to us, whether we are recalling something correctly or is it that it was emotionally correct at the time.
There's a saying that we don't remember what people said, we remember how they made us feel.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that never changed.
Yeah.
So yourself, Jessica, with all your diaries and notes, that must have been invaluable. But how was your memory in matching with those letters?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I found my policy is that like I won't make anything up, and I apply journalist principles to memoir, so I can't make anything up. But I did find there was one incident in my book in Myanmar that I described. I wrote the scene, and then I was like, oh, I've got the photo of when my house fence fell over, and I went to the caption, and it was almost word for word, and it was eerie. Because the way that I have processed that has lodged in my mind, and the indignation, and we've tried this and that. Yes, I was out by a few days of like how long it had been, or those kinds of details. But it was like word for word, really. So that was really interesting to me. So I do trust my memory. And I think in memoir, you only write about emotionally significant events anyway. And they are the ones that we remember the most vividly.
Yeah.
And I always say this is my recollection of events, and any errors, I take responsibility for. And that's the start of the book. Because two people at the same time yesterday would describe an event differently because they have different perspectives. But so long as you give your own true perspective, that is enough.
Yep. And that's what makes such a fascinating read.
Yeah. Because you truly believe it. You truly believe it. Yeah.
Veronica?
A little bit on the writing process, if we could.
Oh, yes.
So, David, sitting down with Peter, mornings, evenings, when was the best time to have these chats? How long did it take for him to get the bones or to get the flesh of the story?
Okay, anytime, day or night.
Yep.
The smart thing we did, we only wrote a couple of chapters at a time. And then Pete would take my facts, he would put them into his own words, and I would help him fine tune it. And we got away with all of that.
Yeah. Almost, co-authoring by the sounds.
Yeah, look, it was a perfect. I can't give him enough credit because he was honest, he was curious, and more than that, he understood where I was coming from. And unlike you guys, I'm not going to write another book. What I'm going to do is try and get my book transformed into a film, and I'm going to try and advise individuals on their careers because that's where I think I can make the most difference.
Excellent. So your love, your passion still belongs to the HR field.
You've got me on in one. I'm a people person above anything else.
Yeah. So, David, as a coach and a leadership person, I absolutely love it. I'm with you. I couldn't ever totally give myself to books, but they are definitely, it's half and half because I can't help but coach people, can't help but just lead them a little bit into where their potential lies. So,
Well, I'd like to say I have a great affinity with women. I've had 2 magnificent wives, 8 kids and 20 grandchildren.
Wow.
And Deirdre, whom you just met, is my fiance, and I'm a lucky man to have had 3 women in my life. And also, I've employed many good women because, unlike a lot of men, women are not a threat to me. They're a complement. There's the yin and yang of life, and women totally complement me. And I used to recruit good women, trust them with what I wanted them to do, and they would do it.
Such an
Like your
inspiring
style.
story. Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. All right, Bruce, what about yourself?
Yes.
Was it up early with the sparrows? Was it a glass of red late at night? How did the story get on the page?
A few people said to me before I started writing the book that I should go off to do writing courses, and look, I'm sure that a lot of people get a lot from those, but I just sat down at the computer and started on chapter 1 and just kept going. And for me, it just flowed, and it was such a joy to write. Well, I'd had that story and the stories within the story rattling around in my head for so long that it was just a delight to get them out and share them with the world. So the whole process was one of pure joy for me, and every step of the way, even the editing process and the publishing, which for some people I think can get tedious. I didn't find that, and I've really enjoyed the whole thing. So I was one of the lucky ones. I just got into it, and it just flowed. So any time of the day, I didn't tend to write in the evenings. I'd get up and have my breakfast and start, and I'd happily sit at the computer for 4 and 5 hours without any problem at all.
That's amazing, Bruce.
I think I'm just one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, you're a natural.
Yeah. How long did it take? Sort of months?
For me,
to get that first draft out?
The first draft was completed in about 4 or 5 months. Then there was a fair bit of changing and re-editing, and with some advice from Jess and other people. I shared it with a couple of mates, and they came up with some ideas. But by and large, it remained much the same document with just some refinements along the way.
Very good. Morning writing, I always find a little bit easier. Jess, what about you? What's your process for getting the words on the page?
Yeah, I like to do it in the morning because then if my day goes pear-shaped, I've got my writing done. and you have that nice feeling like you do have to exercise. So I still, I write 30 minutes in the morning, every single morning, and on the weekends I can do some more. And then I move to client work, so other people's books, because everything becomes so pressing that I wouldn't give myself the time. But again, I really enjoy it. So it's something I do simply because I enjoy it. Now it's sort of changed. I don't feel like I'm trying to prove anything to anyone. I do it the way that people do yoga or breath work or something. That is my kind of breath work.
Fantastic. Yeah. And weekends off, Jess, or are you
No,
thinking about books all the time?
Seven days a week. Because, as a parent, I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. You take whatever time you get.
Yes.
So, I'm very disciplined with my routine, is that nap time has always been writing time. And now they lie on my feet like puppies while I write. Or they watch, they have their iPad or something. But yet I like to do it. Otherwise, I won't progress. And I'm working full time. So it will still take me 3 years to finish my books, because I can only afford to do it for a very small amount of time. Yeah.
But you've got to have that discipline. You're right. We have
Yeah.
to begin. Yeah.
But it's fun. I look forward to doing it.
Yeah. Excellent. Laurie, we've probably got time, one more before we wind everybody up. And
all right, I'll try and get in a quick one. Okay, well, with all writing, so I mean, I'm more of a fiction writer, so it's where my strength comes in. But with all writing, it's very visceral. It's very the smells, the sounds, the tastes, the textures, particularly with travel and with your experiences and reliving those experiences in a memoir. How have you found, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, particularly David, with bringing in your extra senses that you've really pictured and created your memories out of and put them on the page?
Very simply, you're talking about the ability of a blind person to read into life the fact that they do not have the visual sensory perception, which is your most important perception. But through 5-second questions, listening to 5-minute answers, 12 in an hour, and you can find out so much more about people than anybody can do by looking across a table. You really can. It's all in the voice. It's all in the manner. It's all in the reaction to particular questions. And honestly, I've had so much joy out of interviewing people and talking to them, because they've left me high on the experience. And I believe I've given most people I've ever interviewed a level of credibility and understanding. And it's been a fantastic experience to be an executive search professional for 30 years.
Jessica?
You have to repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. So you, with writing and retelling your memories and situating you in a location, how did you bring in, those senses?
Yeah, it's something, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to be overly descriptive and slow down the pace. That's part of the intellectual challenge I love about, writing a book, is to keep it moving along, but to also give the reader the really deep sense, and to do that as economically as possible, And so, and also with a travel book where I'm going, Nepal, India, Pakistan, you've got to, and you're moving, you've got to do that quickly. So it's, what I like to do is only describe something in relation to action. So rather than, what I used to do was kind of look around the room and almost like list stuff that I could see. Now it's kind of, if it's hot, it's the sweat on me. Or pushing my way through a crowd rather than saying it was crowded. But have I mastered it? No. It's a lifelong pursuit of improving your writing and reading great writers to absorb how they do it.
Who's your favourite, Jess?
Orwell.
Oh,
I love George Orwell. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That, clear as a window pane prose.
Yes, fantastic.
And Bruce, with all of your travel?
I visited so many remarkable places in outback Australia that I I had no trouble remembering them and describing them. We were smack in the middle of the Nullarbor working on the Commonwealth Railways. It was a six-man camp, no electricity, and it was just an astonishing place to be. And the fact that the gang of the boss of the six-man camp was almost certainly certifiably insane made it a very interesting place and lots of things to describe. From there, after getting to Perth and not finding enough work there, I then moved up to the far northwest of Western Australia and worked on a sheep station, 325,000 acres. And we were only carrying 10,000 sheep on that size. So it was one sheep to every 30 acres. So you can get an idea how remote and dry and arid it was. So describing that was important for me to do that in the books. In the second book, I moved up to Queensland and into the far north west of the state, near a place called Augathella. And again, it was a remarkable place with remarkable human beings around me and real characters. So it was a real pleasure. I could take myself back there in an instant and describe it, and had great pleasure in doing so.
I was going to say, I imagine the descriptions and remembering those, the heat and the sweat and the smells, that it would just bring everything back for all of
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, for me, I was 18, very impressionable, and so therefore it was the things that were happening to me and around me were just were stunning. So yeah, I had no trouble recalling them and remembering the sights and the smells and the sounds and everything. But it was still in the forefront of my mind, absolutely.
Oh, it makes me think there's perhaps another memoir in me. You never know. You never know. All right. So our time is up. So I'm going to just ask, we're going to share where we can find everybody. Of course, everybody is on Australian Book Lovers. If you look under the biographies and memoirs page, you will find all these fabulous books. And Jessica's will be coming up with a new one. Bruce's will be coming up with a new one. But David, we will absolutely just love Blind Without Barriers. So thank you. Yes. Advice for anybody thinking about writing their autobiography, having their biography written, or writing a slice of their life with a memoir. David, what's your advice?
Don't be afraid. Tell it as it is and enjoy the outcome.
Fantastic. And we can find David at davidhume.com.au. Excellent. Bruce.
If you have a passion for it and you have a story to tell, don't hesitate. It's been such a joy for me to do that, and I recommend it highly to anybody. Don't sit on your hands. Have a go at it. What can you lose? Put it together and see if anybody likes it. And I've had great support from Jess and Hembry Books along the way, and other people, and the feedback that I've had from writing the first book, and I hope it's the same with the second, has been absolutely remarkable. And so, just have a go at it. Don't hesitate.
Fantastic. And we can find Bruce at Bruce Lowery. Let me just get to Lowery is LOWERY.com. So you can see the map of Bruce's journey, and I'm sure the next book will be on there as well. Jess,
well, I wouldn't advice. Business owner if I didn't say get in touch with Hembry Books.
Yes, which is HEMBURY books.
With us, because that's what we love to do.
Yeah.
And I would just echo the points about, being truthful, and this is your life. So, do it, record your life. It is so satisfying to get your story out there. And what you get, I think, that's most invaluable is connecting with other people who are similar to you in life. Like, you kind of get to find your tribe, and you just can't put a price on how nice that is.
Yeah, it is incredible. And as you mentioned, a life unexamined, we need to have that life. That if dear old Greek Socrates was very, very good in mentioning that. And one of the things I know a lot of people find writing their story cathartic, which I certainly did. And I found that I had, in fact, a great deal of compassion for that young woman who went through all of those things 20, 25 years ago now, and thought, wow, thanks. for doing all of that, because that's made me who I am, and all of those decisions that she made have brought me to this point. So yeah, encourage everybody to write their stories, even if you don't necessarily put it out. Jessica can help you shape it and put it on the page.
That's right.
Yeah.
So thanks, Laurie, for
Yes.
our being a fabulous co-host again.
Thank you. And I tell you, just listening to you all talking about your stories is so inspiring when it comes to writing that down and getting your story on the page, just to know that you can do it and that you shouldn't be afraid to do it. And all of you have such inspiring stories to share. So thank you very much for your time tonight.
For any of our listeners out there who would like to put their books on the website, of course, please just jump onto australianbooklovers.com and look at 4 authors, and you can put short stories, novels and poems, which I am getting the pages organised for poetry there as well. So please be encouraging there. And if you are a listener and you want to read one of these fabulous books, then that's fantastic. Jump on the website as well and click on one of those books and read a book. Leave the author a review, tell 2 friends about it, share it on social media, whatever you like, anything that will help share that story. So as we wind up the episode, I just love it if people could remember to read more Aussie books. So are you ready, everybody? If I say, could we please
Count us in.
remember to read more Aussie
books.
books.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Lovely.
Thanks, everybody, and good
Thanks,
night.
everyone. Bye for now.
Let's meet again when magic happens.